Chapter 63, Silo 17. Deep within the silo, Juliet embarks on a mesmerizing descent towards Mechanical, accompanied only by the tranquil sounds of her own breath. With her radio barking at her to descend slower, Juliet halts her descent and ponders the delay caused by Solo. Bubbles escape her overflow valve, and she waits anxiously for him to give her the go-ahead. Finally, she receives the signal to proceed and resumes her descent. As she passes a flooded level, she catches a glimpse of shadows and pale, bloated faces, a haunting reminder of the violence that now lies preserved within the deep waters of the silo. Arriving in Mechanical, Juliet bravely overcomes the obstacle of the security gate. She reaches the sump room, ready to hook up the power lines to the pump. However, a terrifying realization sets in. Her air supply has stopped, leaving her confined in a suit with no fresh air. Panicked and struggling to think clearly, Juliet manages to connect the power wires, hoping that her makeshift setup will be enough. But as the radio communication with Solo abruptly cuts off, and the bubbles from her overflow valve cease, she realizes that the pressure in her suit is gone. A new kind of pressure starts to mount within her, as she faces the dire consequences of being trapped in the depths of the water with no air. Chapter 64, Silo 18. As the chaos of an attack erupts above, Walker and Shirley scramble down the square stairs of Silo 18. Clutching the pieces of a home-built radio, they dodge mechanics and sparks raining down upon them. With the rattle of gunfire growing louder, they make their way to the generator room, where Jenkins manages the influx of people seeking refuge. Inside the generator room, Shirley clears out the control room and investigates the fuel levels. The power supply is intact, providing some reassurance amidst the turmoil. Walker begins piecing together the radio, his white beard glistening with sweat. However, they realize that they forgot to grab speakers. Shirley returns to the control room to aid Walker. With a sense of curiosity overpowering her fear, she laughs with Walker as he improvises the headphones, snipping away unnecessary parts and striping wires. Intrigued by the possibilities that lie within the radio, they ignore the impending danger closing in on them. Finally, the earphones are ready, and they cautiously tune into the voices they had discovered before. As Shirley contemplates Walker's future once they are inevitably rounded up, a voice crackles through the earphones, stopping them both in their tracks. It's Juliet. Walker's hands tremble with tearful joy, and Shirley's disbelief gives way to overwhelmed emotions. The ramifications of this unexpected connection weigh heavily on them both. Chapter 65, Silo 17. Juliet finds herself in a desperate situation at the bottom of Mechanical in Silo 17. With the air hose losing pressure, she realizes the compressor must have malfunctioned. Panic sets in as she contemplates the impossibility of reaching breathable air. Struggling to breathe, Juliet decides to abandon her hasty wiring job on the sump pump and take off the weights on her suit. Despite her efforts, she fails to release them. In a moment of clarity, Juliet remembers her knife and manages to unfasten the straps holding the weights. With great effort, Juliet frees herself from the second weight, but the sudden release causes her to lose control. Her boots fly up, and she smashes into the pipes above her. In the ensuing darkness, her flashlight slips from her grasp, leaving her disoriented and desperate. Struggling against panic, Juliet attempts to free herself from the entanglement of pipes. Lost and unable to see, she realizes she is running out of air within her suit. In a race against time, she feels for the hose connected to her collar and begins gathering it, hoping it hasn't been severed. Desperately pulling hand over hand, Juliet is plagued by fear and uncertainty. With each breath, her air grows depleted, intensifying her panic. She dreads the possibility of the hose being cut and fears her next reach might result in grasping nothing but water. She clings to the hose, desperately navigating through the darkness, her helmet bumping against pipes as she pulls herself forward. Juliet continues to haul herself toward what she hopes is a way out, knowing that her last breath could be imminent, intermingling with the drowned and the dead. Chapter 66, Silo 18. As Lucas sits with his mother outside the server room, he assures her that there will be a promotion awaiting him on this mission, a significant one at that. They discuss the upcoming election, which his mother is excited about, and she expresses her relief that he will be taken care of and provided with sufficient food amid rationing. Lucas promises to look after himself and assures his mother that he will be well fed. Bernard, the acting mayor, and Sheriff Billings join them, and Lucas's mother thanks Bernard for taking care of her son. Lucas prepares himself mentally, trying to appear confident as he tightens his grip on his damp palms. Bernard squeezes his shoulder in support before they enter the server room. Inside the server room, Lucas and Bernard begin their task. Lucas is handed a pair of headphones with a microphone, and they both align themselves for the official operation. Lucas fumbles with the headphones at first, but Bernard patiently guides him. With the headphones in place, Lucas feels a mixture of nerves and excitement. Bernard plugs a cable into the designated port, initiating the connection with the outside world. Suddenly, Lucas hears a deep and hollow voice on the other end, demanding his name. Lucas responds, trying to control his stammering. The voice seems to assess him, asking about his role and his dedication to maintaining order. Lucas answers dutifully, though he longs to express his doubts and questions. The voice inquires about Lucas's involvement in the suit labs and the progress in the lower levels. Lucas, suppressing his suspicions, assures the voice that progress is being made. Then, a significant question arises. The voice asks Lucas if he would have done anything differently from the beginning. Trying to quell his emotions, Lucas responds that he would not have done anything differently, emphasizing his commitment to the order. But deep down, he questions the necessity and morality of the sacrifices demanded. The voice then informs Lucas that he is next in line to control and operate Silo 18. Before ending the conversation, the voice mentions the difficulty of marking a silo for destruction, describing it as a parent losing thousands of children. Lucas acknowledges his willingness to be tough, recalling his father's teachings. The voice grants him an opportunity to ask a question. Lucas takes this chance to ask about the origin of the silos, believing it provides them with purpose. The voice challenges Lucas to share his own theories, leading him to realize that they are both the ones who built the silos and also the ones who've destroyed the world. This shocking revelation stuns Lucas, and the conversation concludes. As Lucas removes the headphones, he is left in a state of disbelief. He feels the weight of the truth and the enormity of the task ahead. The voice warns Lucas to focus on what's beneath his feet, emphasizing the importance of their underground existence. Chapter 67, Silo 18. In the control room, Walker and Shirley hear Juliet's voice coming through the dismantled headset. They are in disbelief, wondering how her voice could be trapped in the air or if they are picking up conversations from the past. Walker, with tears shining in his beard, insists that this is happening now. He grabs Shirley's arm, excitedly affirming that Juliet is alive and with others outside the silo. Realizing they need a transmitter to communicate with Juliet, Walker searches for the missing component. Panic sets in as he realizes it's on his other workbench. Determined, Shirley volunteers to retrieve a transmitter from the mining storehouse while Walker stays behind. Outside, Shirley encounters confused and frightened faces, but she doesn't have time to explain. She reaches the mine storeroom, looking for a transmitter. However, she is confronted by Jenkins and Harper, who reveal their plan to blow up the stairwell where the miners are working. Desperate to help Walker, Shirley begs for a few minutes to find the transmitter. After wrestling with Jenkins, she races towards the stairwell, ignoring the chaos around her. Shirley reaches the storeroom and frantically searches for the transmitter, finding 3 of them along with some relays and dynamite. She takes them with her and rushes back to the stairs, fearing she's run out of time. As she reaches the top, she sees the miners have evacuated and Jenkins calls for the explosion. The ground trembles beneath Shirley as she falls to the floor, but she quickly recovers and heads towards the generator room. Amidst the chaos of the ongoing battle, her mind is focused on the task at hand, reaching Walker with the transmitters and reuniting him with Juliet. Chapter 68, Silo 17. In the darkness, Juliet struggles to find her way through the freezing, murky waters. Her senses return gradually as she navigates blindly, desperately clinging onto the air hose. As she struggles, her suit's air supply runs out, and she realizes she must reach the surface quickly. With a mad drive, she pushes herself through the corridor, the weight of water pressing down on her. A glimmer of hope appears as the water changes from pitch black to a green tint. Guided by memory, Juliet makes her way towards the security station and the stairwell, straining against the stiff and bulky suit. The dizziness sets in, and her desperation intensifies. She longs for a breath of fresh air. As she reaches the security gate, Juliet feels her chest tighten. The temptation to remove her helmet and inhale the water is overwhelming. She fights against it, urging herself to keep moving. But the lack of air becomes suffocating, and she finally sheds her helmet, the water flooding over her face, dragging her down. In the freezing depths, Juliet regains her senses. She spots the knife in her hand and remembers the last time she was trapped in a walk-in fridge, contemplating suicide. Her mind clears, and she realizes she can use the knife to cut herself free from the suit. With each gasp of water, Juliet fights her way to the surface, gripping onto the hose, and finally breaks through to find trapped air bubbles below the stairwell. She greedily inhales the trapped air, tasting the metallic tang of salvation. Fueled by hope, she climbs the stairs, savoring each step as it provides her with a small pocket of air. She plays a game in her mind, imagining herself hopping from one pocket to another, counting steps, driven by the desire to survive. But as she nears the surface, the taste of water turns toxic, and she struggles to find any usable air pockets. Her last breath escapes, and she coughs, her head breaking through the stifling gas and oil. Juliet fights back, seeking air where there is none, until finally she resurfaces, finding Solo, her companion, injured and barely conscious. Struggling with her own diminishing strength, Juliet pleads with Solo to hold on, unaware of the severity of his injuries. As her mind clears, she sees the blood on Solo's face and realizes the extent of his wounds. She desperately tries to tend to him, urging him to stay conscious. But Solo's strength fades, and in his final moments, he reveals that his name is Jimmy and that he was never truly alone. With those words, he slips away, leaving Juliet devastated and clinging to the landing, her tears mixing with the freezing water. Chapter 69, Silo 80. Lucas carefully pours boiling water over his tea leaves, his hands trembling with shock. He turns to Bernard, desperately seeking answers. How could anyone intentionally bring about the destruction of the entire world? Lucas wonders how Bernard, and others like him, bear the weight of this knowledge. Bernard explains that certain facts must be suppressed, lest curiosity ignite the flames of destruction within the silo. Lucas questions the methods used to annihilate millions of lives. Bernard reveals that Operation 50, the extermination, may still be ongoing. The population within the silos must remain homogeneous, and any surviving pockets of humanity pose a threat to the plan. Lucas recalls his conversation with a man who assured him that only 50 silos exist. Bernard corrects him, revealing that there are, in fact, 47 silos. Lucas is stunned to learn that hundreds of years have passed since the decision to destroy the world was made. Horrified, Lucas struggles to comprehend the motives behind the destruction. Bernard believes it was a desperate measure taken by people in power who feared their impending demise. They planned to preserve their way of life by creating a world where resources were tightly guarded and conflicts were avoided. Lucas grapples with the realization that they are now complicit in this vision for the world. He contemplates the legacy of evil that has shaped their existence, questioning who truly bears responsibility. As he gazes at the crossed out silos on the schematic, Lucas wrestles with the realization that he may be unknowingly becoming one of them. The question lingers, how did Bernard not see this within himself? Chapter 70, Silo 18. Amidst the chaos and gunfire, Shirley rushes into the control room, handing Courtney and Walker transmitters with a sense of urgency. Courtney and Walker are surprised to see Shirley, especially with a bloody face. Courtney demands answers, unable to comprehend how Shirley survived. Walker focuses on their mission, saying that if their plan works, they can communicate with Jules herself. Concerned about the workers tampering with the exhaust system, Shirley questions their intentions. Courtney explains that they aim to reroute the exhaust as a way to fight back. They plan to choke out the enemy with their own fumes. Shirley expresses her unease about such drastic measures. As they observe the workers outside, attempting to reroute the generator's exhaust, Shirley reflects on the relief of not having to witness Mark endure the hardships and dangers they currently face. She acknowledges that his absence brings her some solace. However, in the midst of their conversation, Walker's voice breaks through on the microphone, attempting to make contact with Juliet. The women eagerly listen for a response, clinging to the hope of hearing Juliet. The speakers crackle with a voice giving them a glimmer of hope, but their excitement quickly deflates as they realize it's not Juliet's voice. Disheartened, they feel the weight of disappointment and uncertainty. Determined to gather more information, Walker poses a question to the unknown speaker, asking about their whereabouts. The response comes with a chilling warning, claiming they are nowhere and cannot be found. They cruelly announce that their friend is dead, a victim of their own doing. Shirley, Courtney, and Walker are left stunned, grappling with the implications of this message. The uncertainty of their situation deepens, fueling their determination to find answers and fight against the powerful forces working against them. Chapter 71, Silo 17. In the desolate depths of the silo, Juliet struggles to free herself from a freezing, water-filled suit. Beside her lies Solo, motionless and without a pulse, his body a testament to the perils they face. Determined to survive, Juliet fights against the numbing cold and manages to shed her tattered suit, revealing 2 layers of wet undersuit beneath. She shivers uncontrollably, desperate for warmth. With frozen hands and a trembling body, Juliet stumbles toward the compressor in search of heat. But her hands are useless, incapable of unscrewing the gas can's cap. The cruel cold seeps into her, urging her to give in to sleep, but she resists, knowing it might be her final slumber. Defying the numbness that envelops her, Juliet wields her knife. With each strike against the heat exchanger, she hopes for a spark, for the flame that will bring her the precious heat she craves. And there it is, a sudden burst of heat and a wash of warmth against her face. The compressor catches fire, crackling and burning, providing Juliet with a meager but vital source of heat. As she crouches by the fire, she feels her body slowly coming back to life, tingling with the returning sensation. Naked and vulnerable, she feeds the fire, knowing its feeble glow is her lifeline. But fear overtakes her. The walls of the landing seem to close in as she envisions others approaching, trapping her in this cold and treacherous place. Clutching her knife tightly, she contemplates her ghost like appearance, her pale face and trembling lips. Seeking solace by the dying fire, she waits, her eyes fixated on Solo, promising never to abandon his lifeless body. But as the last sparks flicker and die, Juliet decides to move, peeling off her soaked undersuit and donning another, damp but better than nothing. With feet rendered unsteady by the cold, she returns to Solo, and this time she feels a weak pulse, a glimpse of hope. She wakes Solo, calling his name, and his eyes blink open, disoriented yet alive. She tends to his head wound, supplying water from her makeshift bandage. With pain and confusion written on his face, Solo asks about their attackers, but Juliet has no answers. Together, they must find a way out, to escape the frigid depths and reach safety above. They know the ascent won't be easy, but they also know they are not crazy, that the threats they've encountered are real. With the determination to survive, Juliet reassures Solo, assuring him that they will make it out of the darkness. They rise, ready to face whatever lies ahead and emerge into a world they hope will be filled with warmth and light